Hey there. Thanks for tuning in again to the Untethered Consciousness podcast / YouTube channel. It's been a while. I've got one of my old guests, Katherine Skaggs, is returning today, and it's probably a few months ago that I interviewed her. Very, very interesting lady. So I won't give away too much. We'll learn a bit more about Katherine today. So as usual, if you are just tuning in, just let us know in the comments where you're from. I'm Rod. I'm in Sydney. It is what is it? The date today is the 22nd of October. It's 9 a.m. in the morning here in Sydney. 21.5 degrees Celsius, which is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So not a bad day coming into our summer now. Anyway, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you have any questions, the idea is that you can ask questions of Katherine. She's got a lot of experience about a lot of different things, but particularly shamanic. She's a channel. She's had encounters with ETs. It's all kinds of things, but it should be an interesting show today. So yeah, drop a question in the comment if you want to ask, and I'll go and grab our guest. Hello, Katherine.
Hey, Rod. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for coming back on. So I started to ask you if you'd been doing any paintings, which is one of the sort of main things that you do, and you've got a couple there, and there's a bit of a story about how the one for the eclipse came about.
Yeah, let me show you this one. I'll tell everybody about it. So I had been teaching in Illinois in June during this eclipse period that we had back then. And what was interesting is I came home, and one of my friends who took care of my dog, she'd taken some snapshots of the eclipse with her camera, just point and shoot. And when we went through them, I saw an orb in there that looked like a ship, actually, because it changed directions and it morphed. It wasn't always the same. And I was doing a painting class at the time. This painting came through, and she told me that she was from the ship, that she was about bringing an expansion of consciousness. And these eclipses, many of them have been helping us to clear out things that no longer serve us, karmic contracts, old dense energies, and that we are being supported by many beings from off this planet, as well as all this light coming onto the planet to help our DNA shift, to help our consciousness shift upwards. And yes, there's a lot of people that won't make it in the shift. It's like, if you're focused in love, I stay on that track best you can, because you'll be evolving on a lot of levels, on a soul level. And there's many predictions that we're going to be evolving in the next 5 years to what we're calling our ascension process. But many people have been talking about our DNA actually becoming more luminous. For those of us who are focusing on opening our hearts, doing meditation, working beyond this linear reality of separation and moving into unity consciousness, which is very possible. And many people are practicing it. My meditations are focused on that at this point in time, and that it's bringing in a great deal of shift in our DNA. I've been tracking a couple of astrologers and futurists and all kinds of people who are actually all speaking the same language. This is something that I've been downloading for a long time from my studies and meditations. So we have a lot of assistance from off the planet. There's one channel, Bashar, who says in the next 5 years we'll have contact in a much more aware way, like in our governments and things that'll be admitted, even though there's been a lot of contact for many, many years, is just kind of underground for some people. So, but this painting blew in and brought, there's one thing about it that I didn't say. If you can see in the painting, you'll see there's all these squiggly lines in here. And these are what I call light codes or star codes. And they're energetic encodements of light that both have sound and visual. And even going back to shamanism, I work with some Shipibo, and they will tell you that we're born as a song, but it creates form, it creates vision, it creates the way our matter comes together. And that's been spoken of for a long time. Whether you go back to the Bible, it says that we were created from the word, and then there was the word, or you can go back to some Native American traditions where they speak of grandmother spiders singing us all into being. So anyway, these light codes coming in are actually singing to us, helping us to create a new human.
Yeah, I find that fascinating, the idea that sound and light, I mean, it's really their waves, right? So light is just at a different frequency
Yes.
to sound. A couple of people. We've got Midnight Raven. Thanks for tuning in from West Yorkshire in the UK. That's pretty late in the evening, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like 9 o'clock, maybe even 10 o'clock at night. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. So we're talking about. I love talking about ETs, but and I know you've got a lot of experience with ETs as well, Katherine. What do you make of? There's been a lot more sort of disclosure recently. It seems to be a lot more people seeing orbs, seeing ETs, like lots of really like large, widespread content. I think was there one in Washington DC recently, I've heard people say, well, why don't they land on the White House lawn? And the usual answer is, well, that's because that might cause a general panic. So they're kind of doing it in a more sort of staged way. But yeah, what do you make of the fact that is there actually a lot more contact, or is it just that more people are talking about it? What do you think?
I think there's a combination of things. We've got social media now, which makes it a lot easier to have it out in the public. However, I think there's also a stream of consciousness shift that's on the planet as we move to more heart and mind resonance, that we are moving from a linear left brain model to a more heart resonance model. We've called it the Aquarian age. We've called it the return of the divine feminine. There's a literal energetic shift taking place on the planet that's been happening from the solar flares, from the magnetic georesonance that's taking place and shifting. And there's many more people tipping the scales, so to speak, with their consciousness. So I feel like it's a combination of the energetics and the trajectory of our planet, where we are in consciousness evolution, is part of why it makes it easier for others to see and notice that they're here. I also think that there's many different ET civilizations who are here to support the evolution of humanity, that they're very invested in humanity coming into greater harmony, moving from this dualistic 3D model into what's more considered 5D or heart resonance, a higher consciousness that's a unity consciousness. People are shifting. As much as we look out there and it's chaotic, we got the US election coming up. We've got a lot of earth changes taking place that are very dramatic. And those are part of the signs, I think, of the changes taking place. We have a need to focus on love right now for all of us who are invested in shifting up into greater love and harmony. If you're afraid, if you're invested in the duality, if you're invested in fear, some are saying that there will be two earths, and I've heard this for a long, long time, that there would be a shift up for those in consciousness who are in the unity consciousness and actively praying or meditating, focusing on that they're going to shift up to a higher evolution of how they live in greater unity and heart, and that everything is literally taken care of. It's not the same model that we have here in our linear left brain. We can't even imagine it in a human context. We can have faith in it. We can do our meditations and connect to that feeling of love and sensation and our higher selves. However, if we're watching the news and we're afraid of all the things going on, I'd say we're going to need a help moving back to our hearts. I watched a video just yesterday with Pam Gregory, who's an astrologer who's very interesting. And she did a video on the metamorphosis of humanity, along with a couple other, I'm forgetting their names, forward-thinking people who are both in spiritual and quantum physics, all this type of stuff. And they literally are saying that there will be a flash of light coming that'll be moments that will create a shift in humanity. Now, I feel strongly that that resonates with me in regards to what I've read and what I have experienced in terms of prophecy that have come for thousands of years about the end of a dark age. And we've been in the end of the Kali Yuga, which is a very long cycle. And every astrologer will tell you that's looking at these type of things that this has been predicted for a long time. And that the chaos in the world is the end of the patriarchy. It's the end of just living in this linear production model. And that we have other energies coming in to support us having an awakening. I don't know that all of humanity will get it. I question that myself personally. I'm like, well, some may make it and some won't. However, the greatest thing within our control is to focus on our hearts and on our divinity and coming to compassion. That would be one of the greatest shifts is to get out of judgment, to be able to make the shift upwards. And I think that's kind of a long answer to what you said. I know we were talking about aliens and ETs appearing, but I do believe that they're going to be more. They'll appear more in the next couple of years, where we're actually going to make more of a visible contact in our governments, because we have to get to more heart and not go to war. It's like there needs to be a shift so that we're not afraid, that we are actually welcoming heart-centered, higher dimensional beings who have gone through this and who are here to help us bring in a whole different technology spiritually. And it's going to affect how we do things, that there are going to be massive healings take place on individuals, on our physical DNA, and also on the planet as these energies shift, is part of what I feel to be true at this time.
It's a pretty exciting time to be alive, isn't it, Catherine? When you think about things like that. Yeah, that sort of change happening.
I've questioned it, but it's getting better.
I've got Caroline Situdea. Sorry if I butchered your name there, Caroline.
Hey,
welcome.
Caroline. Yes.
Thanks for tuning in. Is that someone that you know?
It is. It's somebody I've worked with in Illinois. Hi, Caroline.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I've got a few questions here, which I might dive into. And if anyone's got a question, just put a Q in the comment, drop it into the chat. Sometimes people are shy. It usually takes about half an hour for people to get their courage up, and then we end up with more questions than we can handle by the end of the session. So we'll be running for about an hour. So if you're sitting on the sideline, drop your question in, because we're only going to be here for about another, let's see, probably another 50 minutes or so. So one thing I wanted to ask you about the process. I know that your artwork is a big part of what you do, but I was just curious, when you said you got the artwork you just showed, then the one to do with the eclipse, when you say you got the eclipse, I know you're saying it was almost like downloaded to you, but can you just kind of explain for us who don't know about how this works, how that typically comes to you, that kind of art?
Well, I do a couple of things, like this painting that I just showed. I'll put it up again so y'all can see it. She just downloaded onto the canvas, and it's like walking into nothingness. It's a conversation with the divine. And I was actually teaching some students this weekend, and very abstractly started to put paint on the canvas. It didn't look anything like this when it began. And I was just opening up my mind to get beyond linear thinking and asking who wants to come in. Is there some consciousness, awareness, or healing that wants to come in? And as I say, I'm dinking around with my painting, I'm just literally, it's like it's talking to me. It's showing me what to do. So it's very abstract. And as I gaze at it, I'm getting guidance that there's a face in it. And this happens to me all the time. I'm like, oh, I always do faces. I'm like, well, these guides come through to me. And she starts giving me, the symbols. I'm not pre-thinking what this is going to look like. It's a conversation with this guide who appeared through the abstract paint to start giving me patterns, to start giving me language in my head where I can feel, sense, know something, telling me each of these things here. It's like, this is a portal. Much of this painting is telling me that there's an expansion of light coming onto the planet. So yes, I paint blue, I paint these different colors, and yet it's like a conversation with a guide that comes in and starts speaking to me, or dropping. Actually, the way I experience a lot of it is a packet of information that is multi-sensory. So I feel, sense, know. And I didn't used to understand that when I started into this in the beginning. I used to think, well, I can't see anything. I don't know, and I go, then a face would appear. I go, are you one of my guides? And so I became curious. And that's one of the best things about channeling, is if you're curious and you're open, whether it be through writing or painting, it's a great way to start trusting your intuition and to play with it and see where it takes you. I always focus to my best of my ability through love. And usually what happens is I'm overwhelmed in love. through the process. I get healed by doing this process. And I think that's part of how I know that part of our future is that it's going to be more telepathic. It's going to be more how we perceive through our senses and trust how we sense energy, moving out of just linear, finite matter, that we are here to perceive in the now moment, not in the past or in the future, but in the now moment is where everything is possible. And that's how I feel like these paintings pop in, is that I become very present and I am in inquiry as to what might happen. I actually thought I could just paint and not have anything happen that day, but it was like magic came through. And so, yeah, it's like, can I teach this? I don't know. I can talk about it. And then I feel like people, when they see the artwork, everything I understand about this is that all sacred art made in this manner with intention and heart and connection to spirit is that it becomes a doorway or a portal. It's transmitting these energy codes through the various symbols and the colors into everyone who's watching right now. And that it's offering up a healing. It's offering up this information to go into your subconscious, into the deep inner states of your true soul beyond your personality. And I think that's a lot of how this energy is coming in to help us heal. It's coming through artists. It's coming through writers. I also write. And in my journaling, as I focus on the I Am Presence, the God Spark, and on love and healing, just recently, Mother Mary came back to me and was speaking very clearly. I knew it was her. It's like she has an energy signature. I've painted her before. And when she comes in, I know it's her. So usually as I get familiar with these different beings, they let me know who they are in some term. I'll show you another painting I did if I can pull that up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please do.
I've painted a lot of Pleiadian energies. This is a Pleiadian priestess who came in before that other painting. I think it was earlier this year.
So the Pleiadians, but where are the Pleiadians from? They're the blue ones, right? Blue, tall.
Yeah, the blues, the purples. I also paint a lot of Syrians. The galactic beings that seem to come to me are often blues and purple tones. I've had a lot of the Pleiadians or hybrids that I associate with the Pleiades, meaning that they might come from another star system into the Pleiades and have been there for a period of time, may have, I'm going to say, interdimensional breeding. I don't know what else you'd call it, is that they may be more than one species ultimately. I see the Pleiades sometimes as a stopover for other systems, other consciousnesses who want to come through to us here because they're very close to us. The Seven Sisters was another name for them. But this is a healing angel. I say angel. This is a healing presence that came through about new beginnings. A lot of the Pleiadians that have come to me have brought messages about hope, about new beginnings, about bringing in Christ consciousness and connecting to that greater potential of ourselves, that humans are really getting the opportunity to become, I've called it Homo Luminous. And I had I'm trying to remember this guy's name, Edward. I'll have to look it up because I just got onto this other guy who's like a futurist, but he's a mathematician and an entrepreneur. He's kind of crazy, good stuff. But he called it Homo Sanctum Luminous, meaning holy light one, or a sacred light being. And I had gotten the term Homo Luminous a long time ago, meaning that we are becoming more enlightened beings. We're becoming more luminous. And literally some of the genetic shifts is that there will be more phosphorus in our systems, which actually emits light. And I'm like fascinated by both the science and the spirituality and how they're coming together. And then the messages that I've gotten through the guides that have shown up on my canvases, because as I sit down and they just show up when I'm open and I'm clear.
I had a reading sort of related to this with Rachel Corpus. She's an angel incarnated here on Earth, right? So I had a past life regression kind of reading. But what surprised me was that there's not just past lives, you've got like these simultaneously occurring lives. And really everything, if you sort of outside of our reality, time is not really a thing anyway.
Right.
But it was interesting in that one of my other past / present lives is this blue being from, what should you say, Andromeda.
Yes.
And just when you showed that picture, it sounded exactly like that. And I don't spend a lot of time looking at them, but I thought it was interesting to understand the idea that our consciousness is really a slice of a greater consciousness, and we have this current awareness, but there's also these other versions of ourselves, and there's this intercommunication that can sometimes occur as well. Do you ever think like that what you get downloaded is perhaps from other versions of yourself and not just a guide or some other being?
Yeah, I've explored that a great deal in a variety of ways, because I remember somebody a long time ago said, well, aren't your guides just you? And I had to think about that, because I didn't really have that in my reality at that point. And then I think about unity consciousness and how we're all sparks of one unified consciousness expressing individuated, and then that we're multidimensional, and that we are having concurrent lives happening. And I've prayed before for my future self to come to me to help me work out my limited version of myself. And yes, so I actually look at some of my artwork, and sometimes I think, well, that could be another me. And there's actually a Mayan saying that I learned when I got into shamanism. It's called In Lakesh. It means I'm another you, you are another me. And so ultimately, we are all sparks of the same, that you and I, as much as we are different, we share that unity consciousness on some level beyond just this human thing. And, I'm very curious, and I'm very excited about it, because I've had a couple of interesting experiences over the years where I've gone to Egypt a lot. One of my second most mystical experiences happened after an energy working class in 30 some odd years ago. And at that time, I had gone back to my hotel room after a full day of this energy work that opened up my field of energy. And as I'm in the hotel room, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm doing nothing. And then all of a sudden I'm in Egypt, and I'm in another timeline, and I'm a priestess, and I'm with my friend who had been at the workshop with me and my teacher who had been at the workshop, and we're in the temple spaces. And then I'm back in the hotel room going, oh, whoa, what happened? And I remember telling my friend and couldn't wait to tell my teacher. And the next day when I told my teacher, she said, yeah, I know, I was there. And so was Stephen. He was a priestess that life in a female body. I'm like, whoa. And yet in plant medicine ceremonies, I've gone to Egypt 100 times, easy. And it's one of the homes on this planet that I've got a lot of experience in. I've had other past life memories and experiences, but Egypt seems to call. I'm bringing this up because of an interplanetary experience I had working with plant medicine, where I had painted this lion-headed white humanoid being. I said, who are you? And when I did that, I heard the Syrian, and I thought, I don't know what that means at the time. And so I remember I was dinking around on the internet, and I think I put in the Syrian, and I saw another painting just like my painting, and it just about freaked me out. Somebody had painted something very similar to me. And I'm like, wow, that's wild. And I went to these ceremonies in New Mexico, and I'm sitting under the stars, and I'm contemplating, who is the Syrian? Well, during what I understand now is that Egypt and all the mystery schools, all the ancient wisdom teachings, the temples, the priests, the priestesses, all the hidden knowledge that was kept in the temples at that time, and many other places on this planet, but particularly Egypt, is that it's very connected to the planet Sirius and the consciousness there, that Isis and Horus and all the Egyptian mythology goes back to Egypt, or goes back to the planet Sirius, which would also connect to Atlantis from what I know. And so as I'm in this ceremony, I fly out of my body through the stars, and Horus meets me. And I've been told I was Egyptian royalty. I'm like, yeah, right, sure, whatever. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's pretty big. And I'm just kind of a human thing walking around here now. And Horus greeted me, and he said, you're my sister. Isis is our mother. Welcome home. Now, I don't remember seeing anything. I remember hearing him tell me that, and the frequency was so loving. I didn't want to come back. It was so pure consciousness and love. And I was just gone for hours. And when I came back, I was like, no, I want to stay there. So I know, it's like, but those states, from what I've explored and continue to work on strengthening in myself, is that we can reach those states of that inner connection, heart, through dedicated meditation, even if we just start at 10 minutes a day. And when people think they can't meditate, they may need to have some extra tools in learning how to meditate. It's not just blanking out your mind. To me, it's like getting into a vibratory state of calm and peace. And it takes a while sometimes if we've been really distracted in our outer reality. But anyway, I thought that'd be interesting because I identify more as a hybrid or a multi-planetary being than I do Earth. I remember being a little kid thinking, why are humans so mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the older I got, the more I was like, I'm not from here. This does not feel like home to me. I think the Earth is beautiful. There's beautiful parts to it, and it's treacherous in this duality. And yet we're here. I'm here for whatever reason my soul chose, was to be here to probably be talking to you, that we decided we'd talk to each other and meet each other over the internet and somehow bring out these conversations about possibility of greater love, greater light, and that we are not alone, and that there's a great soul adventure taking place here.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to think about. And if you think about these concurrent lives together, so the reason why I asked this question to Rachel, because I've had this sciatic pain in my legs for probably 5-6 months now, and I just had an MRI, and I've got a pretty severe disc bulge in my lower back, which is causing the sciatic pain. And so one of my questions was, is there something, some perhaps other explanation for having that pain, and in another existence, in the the Assyrian Empire. I don't know if I've got the name right. It was like it was sort of a split off from the Roman Empire between 400 and I think 1200 AD.
Anyways, SSENE.
That's not it, but it's close. Okay. Anyway, my job, I was a map maker, but I was part of as the sort of war machine moved around, my job was to create maps, and the promise that I was made was that I wouldn't have to participate. I wouldn't have to go and kill people. And at one stage that promise was broken, and I had to be part of that. And it was very hard on not only on my soul, but my lower body. So her advice to me was that it's a recognition of what you're like. Your body sort of holds onto these things, even though maybe your soul doesn't. It holds onto that energy, and it's a recognition of what I went through then, and the sort of the path to releasing it is just to recognize that was then and this is now, and it's okay to actually let go of that, which actually really helped me a lot. I know there's a physical ailment that has to heal, but it also sort of made me feel like, well, it was just a recognition. I thought that does make sense. As crazy as it sounds, it makes sense that would be occurring because of, what happened then, because of how difficult that particular lifetime was.
Absolutely. Yeah, we our body is a mapping system, so it will store information in it that, like you say, we want to come to consciousness about, so that we don't have to live in the past, and that our bodies can heal. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a question here from Caroline. She wants to know what you believe happens when we sleep. She's had visits from people who have passed, but I've also had experience where I've had conversations with people. She's got a follow-up, which is that are still living, people who I've had problems with.
So when we go to sleep, we go inward to the inner levels of consciousness. There's probably a couple of different names for it. I can call it subconscious mind, but it's when we leave our bodies, we can go inward to these other dimensions. And it's in those places that when we see people who've passed over, you know, a lot of things about dreams. They can be symbolic. They can be absolutely meeting people from once they've passed, or they want to let you know they're okay. They have something to gift you or give you in terms of the conversation. It's an opportunity to bring healing. Also, if you're having conversations with people you are having in this life that are still living, I would have a couple of perspectives. Look, they're symbolic and a representation of you. If you consider that we're not all that separate, that they symbolize something. Usually when we have conflict with other people outside of ourselves, we need to look at ourselves to see where are we mirroring that energy and go, oh, there's no way that person's reflecting anything in me. Well, some people say that, some people won't. So I always say that if you're talking to people in your dreams, are you coming to resolution? Are you coming to love? Are you still in conflict? And before you go to bed, one of the things that you can do is that you can set an intention, since you are remembering your dreams, is to go to that place of healing between you and that other person, for you to resolve any conflict in yourself so that you can be neutral with them and know whether to have them in your life or not, in the way that you come to a place of love. So your dreams help you work out what you need to work out in your everyday life. They're typically a reflection of the last 24 to 72 hours of your life, that they're bringing messages to you from your higher self. And they come in the form of symbols, and sometimes they're very literal. You have to get to trust your own symbol system to know what to do with that. But I'd say set intentions before you go to sleep for having a positive outcome, for resolution of conflict and coming back to love. And then everything in your day life will change.
That's useful. I had an interesting dream about, I try to record them, especially if I've just had them and I wake up or I make a note. And I had one which was situated on a farm I grew up on. But the very last thing I remember, I was talking to a person and it was their eyes. So it was two eyes. And for all of a sudden, it was kind of like the conversation sort of, well, the scene centered around their eyes. And it was almost like they had been drawn, you know, but like by a technical artist. They were so precise and clear and great and very, very, very large as well. But not to the point where it was like weird large. It was just that that was the focal point in the conversation. And I like what you said about how sometimes the dreams are literal and they're just symbolic as well. And so I've got this book which was by Betty Bethards. Yeah, it's called the Dream Book, which is really cool. It's got lots of it's like a dictionary. You can just look up the word and then you can get an idea. And how sometimes eyes can be like having your eyes open, like being aware of what's actually going on, not having the wool pulled over your eyes, you know. And I think it's fascinating.
The dreams are amazing. You know, in the shamanic world and metaphysical world that I've studied in my experiences tell me is that this is a waking dream. Our night dreams are another version of dream, and that we are doing our best as soul to wake up into how we're creating our reality, that we are involved in all of it. And then in our night dreams, I learned a universal symbol system in this school that I started with 30 some odd years ago. I've opened up my mind more to seeing personal symbols. But it's an interesting thing when you think of whether it's in your sleep or in your waking state, that everyone is a symbol in your world, in your soul's symbol system. That can get you to really look at your life and Rod, what do you symbolize to me? Or what do I symbolize to you? And all these people on this call, it makes you start expanding how you see energy and how you see consciousness, that all these symbols and what appear to be finiteness are actually energy working to help us understand ourselves more and how to choose more lovingly. At least that's my version of it.
So I've got Midnight Raven who tuned in early. I would like to know if it's possible for us to work in our dream state. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Do you know what she's talking about there?
I was curious what she meant. What do you mean by work?
Give us some more details about that one. Barbara, thanks for tuning in. any conversations I've had with the departed loved one are brief, telepathic, and final. It's the final part that gets me sad, but it's always a lovely, unfulfilled experience. Yeah, I suppose, have you had much experience with friends and close family passing over and having some sort of communication on their way?
Yes. When my mom passed when I was 31, I knew exactly when she passed, but it took a couple of years to dream about her for some reason. I think she was in what I considered a healing state, and that she had a lot of triage going on. She came to me 6 years later, and she apologized to me for any way that I might have taken on any of her health problems or her difficulties in her life. And she came as an angel, but I knew it was her. She has reappeared recently in some dreams and other places that I've been surprised at, because there's a big gap, because that was like 30 some odd years ago. Now I've got someone that I had one of the most profound past, someone who passed was a very dear friend of mine in 2015. She co-created the Mythical Goddess Tarot with me. She was the author, Sage Holloway, and she had cancer, and I got to be her death doula. I got to be there the last few months of her life and support her, which was pretty amazing. So after she passed, I went back to sleep, and sorry, my dogs are barking down there. I went back to sleep, and a couple hours later, I woke up and she was in the dream, and I was at the hospital contemplating her death. She wasn't even at the hospital, but that was the symbol in my dream. She walks through the door with her cell phone in her hand and an entourage, which I know are her angels who helped her pass over. And she looked at me and she said, "I'm not dead." It became our joke, because about 4 days later, she came back to me in another dream, and we were just talking like this, and it was so visceral and so real. I was so happy. And then the phone rang in my dream, and there was somebody who'd been at a ceremony right after she'd passed. We'd had a ceremony at the house, and I had literally done a healing on her. She'd come and sat in front of me during the ceremony to clean off the cancer. She didn't want her children to have it. So that was before the dream. And most everyone in that ceremony that night who had never physically met her saw her. And so she was very present. We were very connected in our creative processes, and I adopted her dogs at that time when she was passing. So anyway, I have this dream after the ceremony, and I get that phone call, and she said, "Well, who was that?" And I said, "Oh, it was so-and-so. They were in the ceremony after you died." And she disappeared. And inwardly, I knew, it's like, "No, I know you're not dead. Come back, come back." So that's been a joke between us for a long time. I haven't had her in a dream in quite a few years, but she shows up at my house a lot, because I still have the dogs that are 9 years older than when I got them. And she particularly is invested in what I do around here. So I tune into her every now and then. When I meditate, I've been working on astral projection again, which I hadn't done in a long time. I've been asking her to come in and help me. And so I'll feel her on occasion, but I haven't had her in my dreams that I'm aware of in a while. But yeah, I love when I have dreams like that.
There's so many questions to ask you out of that. So how's astral projection is a fascination of mine. And how's that going? Have you had any success?
I haven't tried to work on it in years. I had some success in my 30s with it, but every time I would project, I would get excited, because I know it's projecting. I go right back to my body.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've started doing some working on it in the morning, at night. I have not gotten back to projecting yet. I've had some really deep meditative type experiences that I come out feeling so good. But I've kind of committed to it, because I'm very curious about using it more intentionally now to travel astrally, to go in my mind, to go to places of wisdom, to go to remembering what I know from other lifetimes, or other simultaneous realities. I'm getting ready to go to Egypt in February, and I'm very invested in reconnecting and bringing to consciousness all that I've experienced in deep spiritual experiences. That I feel like a lot of progress has been made this life, but I'm very interested in going back into really any place that I've gone deep in any other lifetime. So that's kind of what led me there, I guess. And just coming to a sense of being really connected to my higher self at all times.
Yeah, it's one of those insane curiosities I've had. I think it was probably ETs and then astral projection when I found out about it. And like you, I had one success, and I was so excited about it. But probably, I think time was a bit weird, but it felt like maybe it was a minute or two, and then not had any success since then. But at the same time, once I had succeeded, like the real will and commitment to make it happen kind of diminished a bit. So that's probably part of it. But I've had quite a bit of success with lucid dreams. So being aware of the fact that you're dreaming, and then either letting things play out or actually having some control over what's going on, that seems to be more accessible, which is a gateway to
Absolutely.
an out-of-body experience too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so we've got Barbara has. Oh, hang on, we've already dealt with Barbara. So Kerry from Australia, welcome, Kerry, another Aussie. Question: what percentage of the population do you believe are awake or awakening?
That's a great question, and I don't know that I've got any clear awareness of that. At one point, I felt like if we got to 1 or 2%, we'd be doing great. I don't know how to quantify that with the information I'm taking in right now and what I'm feeling. I feel that it doesn't look good if you look at the news. And then when I watch other conscious channels and beings who are out there talking about the shift that we're in, I feel like there's a whole lot more people's souls that are shifting up than what it may appear by just the external, like the traditional news. So I'm like, don't watch the traditional news, look for the light. But yeah, I honestly cannot give you a percentage. I feel that the greatest thing we can do is each one of us continue to do our part in it, and that there's an exponentiality taking place in the next 3, 4, 5 years from everything that I feel, sense, know, and what I've taken in from other people doing work like this, is that it may appear that we're only at 5% and that we're going to make a quantum shift because there's a quantum effect taking place, that there's something exponential happening that right now maybe we can't quantify. But I do feel like there's something massive in our awakening taking place over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's what's behind that question, is like how many people have to wake up before it becomes, a much more, let's say, mainstream. That's one of the things that I got from the Ra series of books, the Law of One, and I thought it was interesting how, like, when a civilization moves up not a dimension up, third dimension to fourth dimension to fifth, when they sort of move up, it only takes a small percentage of people or beings to actually cause that to then have everybody shift. If we're talking about a service to others, kind of, there's a service to self direction, or there's a service to others direction, whereas which the service to others is the positive direction and one is the negative. Both are valid, in the great scheme of things, and allow for advancement. But to go down the other road, which is service to self, then it required like 95% of the entire population before that that could occur.
Well, and everything, I think about it too in terms of souls that are enlightened being here. There's definitely more enlightened beings than we have any idea on this planet right now, as far as I'm concerned, more self-aware. And I want to come back to the heart and that heart-mind resonance, heart-brain resonance, that the more we focus into the now moment and into the heart space and the feeling of gratitude and love, the faster the awakening is going to be. It's that vibratory state when we can get out of future, we can get out of past, and we can work on being present. All possibility is right there. If quantum physicists are proving it, Joe Dispenza talks about it, spiritualists, futurists are talking about it. But we have to come to a point of forgiveness and a point of pure essence of being in the heart with gratitude, and it expands and changes everything. And as we also have, just think about, we were talking about ETs earlier, how many souls, even though they're more interdimensional and they're less material than, say, our human bodies at this point, they're there holding space for us, basically. They're there vibrating in the field, making themselves more aware in this multidimensional reality that we're becoming more aware of, is there also should have an energetic effect at shifting us upwards more rapidly. Because every time a light, I think of it, of the planet as a matrix with light bulbs on a grid, and that more light bulbs are going off all the time. And that with all the helpers that we have here, I don't see how we're not going to shift up. The only thing that's going to keep us from shifting up more quickly is if we keep prescribing to fear. So we have to do our personal self work that is in service to the whole. So when you talk about, I loved what you had to say, but I also think of sacred selfishness being, if you will take time to do your personal evolutionary work and be curious about how to get into that heart space, how to be in your stillness, how to be in the still point of unified consciousness, we've got this. We've all got this. It's happening. We are, all of you who are here, we're here in the love. We're here for this next step. And if you, I have to mention one more thing in this. As we do this, as we come into more and more consciousness personally, or even collectively, the things that are going to happen is we're going to still have initiations of any shadows that maybe we don't like ourselves in some areas, or we don't like that person in a certain area. That's where our work is to give love to those places that have been challenging, because that's part of the evolution of coming into what I consider our Christ selves, or our more of our ascended selves.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the question is related to kind of what you said about when your mother went into healing for a while, from Barbara. Does dementia of a past loved one cause any delay of sorts on the other side? My dad died of Lewy bodies dementia 5 years ago. One of my past guests, actually, her husband died from that dementia. I've not been visited by him yet, but hopefully one day I will.
Yeah, on this side, linear reality takes a lot longer than what's going on the other side. But what I understand, when people have been sick, they have trauma, they have illness, and they leave, and they are not as, say, awake, conscious and having an easy exit, is that I've have seen them in healing areas, like in the mind, that they go to a place, like I said with my friend Saint, she had angels. I remember being in her bedroom doing sound healing on her and going like this, as I felt this huge angel beside me. Well, that's what I saw when they brought her into my dream, is they had all these beings who were with her. And even though she could very clearly communicate with me on one level, I know that she went into healing spaces. I would say the same thing with your dad with dementia. My sense of when someone leaves with Alzheimer's or dementia, and I'm so sorry because I know that's such a difficult process for any of us to deal with on this side, is that they're already in between the worlds, making a passage that perhaps, I don't want to judge anything or make a statement. I want to make the statement that their soul needed that exit slowly, in whatever way it was, to leave this world, because they might have been too attached if they just stayed in their conscious mind like the rest of us. Now, I would say that with deep compassion and empathy. So when he got to the other side, my sense is that he is being taken care of until, on this side, it seems longer. I don't think it's without time on the other space. It's usually us who have a hard time with it, with not being able to track it. But Barbara, I would try a couple of things to see if you could open up any communication. Shamanically, if you haven't done this, I would make an altar to him to say hello to him every day, and to send him love from your heart to his, wherever his soul is. That you're saying, hello, Dad, I know you're out there. I would love it if you give me a sign, and then be curious. Prayer like that, sending energy to him of love and acceptance like that, can heal you as well as him, to clear any barriers where it seems like there's some reason why you can't connect on the level that you are now. I'd also ask that your higher self and his higher self make a date, that somehow he does make it through to your dreams to let you know, or that his angels come in some form and let you know, or his guides, his helpers. So oftentimes when we can advocate in those manners with love, it can help us be at more peace and relax the situation that may make it more easier for the level of communication to get to you soul to soul. At least that's my experience so far. And it'd be an interesting thing to see how that works for you, if that does work for you.
Great answer. My friend Nikki Allen talks about the seraphim, who the angels who are responsible for healing, and how that's sort of the first place that people go to if there is some sort of healing that's required. They use sound and light, and it sounds pretty wonderful. Actually, I wouldn't want a bit of that while I'm still alive. Thanks, Gary. Yes, has been a great discussion today. I wanted to ask you about ancestral healing. Actually, one of the things that came up when I had my conversation with Rachel Corpus the other day was that, the question I had was, is there any, have I chosen to take on any healing from, within my soul group? And I don't know if I asked it exactly like that. And what the angel said was that I had explicitly chosen not to do that this time around. So I'd been asked to, you take this on, and I said, no, I'm good for this time.
Good for you.
which actually made sense. She goes, yeah, that was a wise decision. Got enough going on already. What's your take on ancestral healing, and why does that occur? And I'm interested in your thoughts.
Soul agreements, kind of like what you said with your soul group earlier. I know I signed up for some reason for some of that in my DNA that I chose this lifetime, and which I remember thinking, I didn't read the fine print on my contract. What was that about? But actually, one of the greatest things we can do if we feel like we're carrying patterns from our family, they call it epigenetics, where we really understand that in our gene codes, we can carry forward the gifts from our DNA, patterns where people may be artists in a family, they may be politicians in a family, they may have a certain pattern that you jump into for a reason for your own soul evolution. Also, we may agree that we're the ones to come in and change the DNA and the trajectory of that DNA and healing it. I remember being in a ceremony once and asking, did I do something wrong? This has been kind of hard with this family DNA I chose. And the answer I got back was, you didn't do anything wrong. You came and chose that DNA because you could bring healing to it. I'm like, oh, great. This has been part of my challenge. But in terms of ancestral healing, some of the things that can be wonderful that help you manage your health, your well-being, changing patterns, is to notice where you focus your energy. Are you afraid or are you in love? It sounds so simple, but it's not. It's about training your mind through meditation and through intention and emotion. What kind of emotion do you have connected to healing? Do you have love, forgiveness, and gratitude? Or are you angry? Are you hurt? Are you carrying betrayal? Are you carrying those patterns that are from childhood maybe, or maybe what your parents went through? It's good to, through meditation and through other consciousness exercises, to recognize what you feel as much as what you think about it. And that's why altars and shamanic practices, ceremonies are very good, because it focuses you on an intention and giving gratitude, giving thanks to your ancestors, understanding what are their gifts. I think most of us, all of our ancestors have been through trauma, as far as I know. I mean, we've come from conquering people for thousands of years. Maybe we've had advanced civilizations when we go back, and we can say that that's in our DNA too. But we've also had a lot of trauma recently, and in hundreds and hundreds of years, we've been both conquerors and probably ones who've been conquered. And so it's really important that we give ourselves some grace when we do any ancestral altars. We may just do our parents or our grandparents, or maybe some people that we never met that were pioneers who came all the way across from one continent to another. We have pioneers in us. I don't care who you are. I guarantee you've all had some ancestral DNA that is survival, that is tough, it's tenacious. And then there's parts that really need some healing, that need to have love put into that DNA. And that through relaxing ourselves through joy, through gratitude, through laughter, we can change our own DNA, as well as offer that to our ancestors through our intention and ceremony. So I find ancestral healing work very valuable. And with group, I just led an ancestral healing for the full moon here just a couple of nights ago. And we made an ancestral altar. And then I gave the opportunity for many of the participants to come up and to speak to their ancestors, to say what they were grateful for, or to ask for whatever needed to be healed to be spoken out loud. Because I find that as we speak with our heart's intentions and clarity, that is one of the most powerful things in creating change. And that part of my goal of bringing groups together is through different ceremonial practices is to get them into their heart spaces, so that any edges and any hardships and any feelings of lack, any feelings of hurt or pain has a place to be channeled into release. And then for the heart to open to hold each and every person, because that is where our genetics will change, is that we actually can get into a feeling of open heartedness, safety, and that sense that I can be grateful, even if I had difficulties that I went through, that I'm a different person because of it, and that I can find the gold in it, so that I can then send that to my ancestors and have some compassion that they went through stuff too. And if it got passed on, that maybe I'm the person or you're the person who's going to change that, because we are all very capable of doing that when we can understand that through gratitude, or maybe we need therapy, but it could be many spiritual practices, meditations can get us back to heart. And that shifts all the potential of what our futures are. And because time is a construct, we can send that back to our ancestors, we can send that to our future, and we can change our DNA through time and space.
Wow, this is amazing, this conversation. All right, so we've got a Midnight Raven had, this is the last question, would like to know if it's possible for us to work in our dream state, and she or he, I imagine it's a she, has updated that. When I say work in a dream state, I mean sitting at a bedside, waiting for them, taking them to a beautiful room, then finding myself at another bedside, waiting for another person. Sounds like she's kind of like wanting to like be an escort for souls in a way, but what's your take?
Well, I say that yes, we can do that if that's our intention. You set anything is possible when you set your focus on it and you become curious about it. I do a lot of guided meditations for people, and I do this in my healing work too, where I start to see taking them into healing spaces. And I consider those in the quantum field or in the mind, whichever you like to call it, is that when you set that construct up, it becomes real. So if you set that construct up in your dream state and you are waiting, say, for a soul who's passed over to be one who's a guide or a psychopomp is what we call it in shamanism, one who takes people from one side to the other. I know several people who do that. I've got chills talking about it right now. It's very sacred work. If that's what you're called to, absolutely, you can work with your dream state to help other people out all day long.
There's in a couple of the books by I think there's one called okay, hold on, The Father of Out of Body Experiences.
Oh, Monroe,
yes. So the one, I think, because he wrote 3 books, I think it was the middle book talking about the gateway. I think it was not the Gateway program. It was
a long time ago.
Yeah, there was another program that they had. Anyway, they talk in great length about that. So I would actually go and dig up the Monroe, so Robert Monroe's books, and have a look, because it sounds what they're literally doing, what you're talking about, taking people, and especially when there was, what I found fascinating was when there was like a large calamity, like 9/11 or something like that, where there was the floods in Banda Aceh in Indonesia. So when there was a lot of people were died at the same time, how there was this sort of like assistance to help people move over. And it's not unrelated to one of my other guests, Father Brian, get his surname at the moment. He's interviewed him quite a while ago, and he has people come to him in his dreams. He's a Catholic priest, right, which is even more amazing. people come to his and they present to him how they died, and he's realized that and they're kind of like trapped. They haven't crossed over properly. They're kind of like an earthbound spirit, and his task is to help them take that final step, but he doesn't get sent them until they're kind of ready to go as well. It's almost like somebody else is managing traffic and say, okay, well, you can go and see Father Brian now, and then he sort of helps them connect with someone else to help them go through or whatever. It is a fascinating topic. There's so many things to read about there.
I'd love to meet him. He sounds interesting. Well, one other thing I haven't mentioned is that we can also call on archangels and ascended masters to come help move these souls through the astral plane. The astral plane is wonky. It's sometimes we don't want to go in there with our own personal consciousness unless we have a big protector, energetic helper. Unless you're just really huge energetically and hold the light, you may be able to make it through the astral realm just fine. However, it's often talked about that Archangel Michael or other archangels and their legions of angels help escort beings through the astral realm to take them into the higher dimensions. And so that's usually when people pass, everyone has their own death angel, from my experience. And I know there's also roles of, like I mentioned earlier, psychopomps or people doing this work. I was somewhat that for my friend Sage, but I know she had this big angel who was huge. He would sit in the chair in the corner by her closet in her bedroom. I could see him. He was all black, but he was not negative. He was the one who was there to take her. And so I think we work with a lot of different consciousness or energies of these beings, and then we can invoke them. We can call them very specifically when we need help for an individual, or if we perceive they're stuck for some reason.
Great. Toto, my angel is humorous. Yeah.
You're very light.
Yeah, I've heard that said a lot about people's experience, especially NDE, people who've had a near-death experience, and their accounting source especially has a great sense of humor. Everything they think we're all pretty funny, I think, the way we carry on here on Earth, which is not surprising. Katherine, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up now. Could you just let people know, just see how they can get in contact with you if they want to? They might not have watched the other interview, and anything you've got going on that they might be interested in hearing about.
Yeah, I'm available at my website at KatherineSkaggs.com. So if you can spell my name down below, it's just my first and last name put together.com. I'm on Facebook, same thing, Katherine Skaggs, and little Instagram. I don't do much there, but I do a lot of work virtually. So no matter where you are, I'd love to speak to you or support you if you're called to do so.
All right, terrific. There we go. There's the banner. Oh, I'll make it so
I
it
do
doesn't
have
actually.
a YouTube channel too.
It doesn't. All right, terrific. Okay, well, thanks for joining us today, Katherine. Really appreciate it. As always, I never know how these conversations are going to go, and in my mind, if one person got something from it, it was definitely worthwhile doing. It was. We had quite a few people tune in, so thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
You're a light in the world for lots of other people. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate it.
And see everyone the next time I'm on. I'm on again next week with another guest. Thanks for tuning in.